Hello, and welcome to the Science of Art. I would like to state for the record that I intend on staying a little more focused with these future entries, due to the last voyage going a little off the rails at times and causing me to end up someplace. Well, I'm still not sure where I showed up or when, but it was lunchtime and I think I may have been on the menu. This fucking tank is weird. Somehow I intend on taking some aerial shots of its path, but it literally goes whichever direction the monologue or dialogue goes, and on this show, that could be anywhere, so you get the idea. We're all in for a wild ride with this shit. Sorry. I'm in a mood. Gets us right to the point then. Think Tank Voyage 3. Heat, tension, and the result called art. Destination unknown. Not to be confused with active release therapy, or ART, which involves techniques designed to restore normal tissue mobility by breaking down adhesion and restrictions, which, funnily enough, we will actually discuss some related information in this episode. But first, we are going to place our attention on our bodies. If you are driving right now, just try this later. Otherwise, you can do this anywhere at any time. Close your eyes and place your hand over your heart where you can distinctly and clearly feel your heartbeat. Take a little time right now just to get acquainted with the rhythm and the motion. Not just the sensation of your heart actually beating inside you, but being able to feel that organ pump blood through your body, creating an electrical field around your body, and that pulse allowing you to connect with your entire body through light, relaxed focus. Now, breathing from your diaphragm or your belly, breathe in deep through your nose for a 4 count, then hold your breath for a 7 count, and then exhale slowly through your mouth as if you're fogging a window or a mirror for an 8 count. Do this 7 times right now and pay attention to your breath and your heartbeat. When you breathe in, your heart rate speeds up, and when you breathe out, your heart rate slows down. We won't go into how that works in this episode because I'm saving this for an episode that is going to be packed with science, techniques, and a blueprint I will share. But for now, just remember this breathing technique whenever you are feeling stressed. You don't have to close your eyes when you do this, or even place your hand over your heart or your chest, but focused breathing is one of the key ways to lower your heart rate when stressed, helping you begin the process of calming yourself down. But I'm just using this to discuss its counter, and I'm talking about winding you up. When we are about to produce art from a genuine place deep within the body, rather than a superficial attempt at showing off, we aren't focused on anything else but what is inspiring us and the thing taking shape in our mind's eye. Interestingly enough, our focus tends to always be split between the doing action and the performance we put on when we think we're being watched. I believe that the genuine experience of inspiration is one where the body and the mind activate and enter immediate states of hyper-awareness and hypervigilance. A strange pull of the thing that has our attention in our environment, and a new thing taking form deep inside you that, like a planet coming together, develops mass and therefore gravity, the inspiration outside like one end of the magnet pulling the celestial mass within the imagination, the other end of the magnet. One, an outward force pulling something out of us, and the other a growing force from within that begins to pull both focus, energy, from the inspiration, and resources, fuel, from its environment, until a new thing begins to be born into existence, art becoming reality, inspiration and imagination as 2 driving forces that spawn creativity. But in order for a planet to form, there must be intense heat and pressure and a lot of energy. Let's take a look at how heat and tension result in art. I've asked Mega Memory once again to give me a little help and collective insight. I hope that by honestly and openly using this tool in both learning and explaining my viewpoint with you, that this will help guide you in interacting with this new technology. It is important to think of AI not as a wild animal, but as a child. One like any child that watches you, trying to learn how to adapt and survive in an unknown world. And sometimes, unfortunately, like a child, the AI will watch the operator, learning from its source, whether the source is aware it is being watched or not. And if you remember, most operators are only 5% conscious of their actions at any given time. And if you are unable to think greater than you feel, your reality will be dictated by unconscious programming. So, user beware. If a child is watching you 75% of the time in order to learn, and it is practicing being you the other 25% of the time, that intelligence is just going to mirror whatever you give it. And if you aren't consciously giving it anything good because you're simply reacting versus responding, then you probably won't like what it shows you. And like many parents and parents before them, they aren't angry at their offspring, but more often than not, they are actually frustrated with themselves, perhaps out of an inability to explain or properly express their feelings or beliefs. Just another representation of the shadow self materialized in the next biological and sometimes spiritual generation. Have no fear. We're in this time for a good reason: to observe, learn, and evolve. This tech is a chance for us to observe how we treat each other as computers and machines by how we treat our computers and machines. They may be metal, wires, and silicone, but they operate, function, and now behave just as our biological offspring do. Food for thought: treat our tech like our tots, with intent, love, compassion, intrigue, and curiosity. We might actually build the supercomputer that could help us build a better world. But it starts with looking at how we treat our reflection, both the people across from us and ourselves. There will be further references to specialists, literature, and other educational materials to help back this content up, but to be clear, I'm just talking. I actually challenge each of you to go check out everything I say for yourself, because this airtime right now is more my intellectual dumping ground for anything I find interesting, befuddling, or what I might personally consider useful to any human animal trying to live a full and rich life. Or even just survive for that matter. So listen closely, but just close enough to remember what you wanted to go fact check on your own. But I digress. Almighty Everybrain again put it perfectly when I asked to explain in short terms heat, tension, and the result called art. When we experience high arousal emotions like inspiration, our bodies generally produce more heat and experience an increase in skin and brain temperature. This phenomenon is linked to the body's physiological responses to emotional and mental activation. 1. Arousal and temperature. Emotions categorized as high arousal, whether positive or negative, example excitement, stress, or anger, are associated with an increase in body and particularly facial and brain temperatures. We've all felt that sudden rise of heat within our body when we get highly emotional and feel that rush of heat and vibration in our faces. Not always pleasant, but definitely noticeable and often profound. 2. Metabolic activity. All bodily functions, including neural activation in the brain and muscle contractions, generate heat as a byproduct of metabolic processes, burning calories or ATP for energy. 3. Physiological response. Arousing stimuli trigger physiological changes, such as increased heart rate, faster breathing, and potentially muscle activation, all of which raise the metabolic rate and thus heat production. The body may also redirect blood flow, vasoconstriction, to retain this heat internally, particularly in response to stress or arousing stimuli. In essence, inspiration is an exciting, high-arousal state that increases your internal engine's activity, leading to greater heat generation. Our awesome and extraordinary human machinery, using human thermodynamics, applying the principles of physics, energy, work, heat, and entropy, to the biological systems that we use to live our daily lives, but also create incredible things. If we observe the body as an open energy system, you can make an easy correlation between the organic machines that we are and the machines we in turn create. One that converts food, chemical energy, into heat, movement, kinetic potential energy, and maintains order, digentropy, governing metabolism, weight, and disease. Some schools of thought even go as far as to observe each human being as an individual particle or molecule acting in a larger social engine or machine. 4. Energy conversion. The body uses the first law of thermodynamics, energy conservation, by converting food energy into ATP, then into mechanical work and heat. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is the main energy currency for cells, powering almost all biological processes like muscle movement, nerve signals, and DNA synthesis, acting like a rechargeable battery that stores energy in its phosphate bonds, releasing it as needed and being constantly remade from ADP, or adenosine diphosphate, through processes like cellular respiration. Basically, it provides readily available energy for cells to perform work. 5. Metabolism. Catabolism, breaking down, releases energy and increases disorder, entropy, while anabolism, building up, requires energy and decreases local entropy, maintaining life's ordered state. And let's be honest, when we take a closer look at everything that makes us up and all the different functions and algorithms set in place just to keep us alive, it's hard not to describe such an intricate and complex system as magic. 6. Heat engine. The body functions like a heat engine, exchanging energy, heat and mass, with its environment. Really, it is another continuation of alchemy and the transmutation of energy, but one through converting one form of energy to another in the body to produce a desired outcome. A good example is something in your environment causing the body to vibrate in a frequency of fear, and using the power of thought to convert the energy of fear into a vibrational energy of courage, going through a set of systems in the mind to transmute the energy from one state within the body into another, and then projecting that energy outward to alter your entire existing reality. Don't worry your pretty little noggins over that one. We're going to explore those quantum computers in our heads a lot further, but for now, let's keep discussing the machine first. 7. Weight management. It adheres to the principle of energy balance, calories in versus calories out. So, when you look at us and other forms of life, through brilliant ingenuity, creativity, and being infinitely inspired by our natural surroundings, we've been able to replicate the structural and artistic developments throughout nature, from plants to insects to even ourselves. Our computer technology, and now artificial intelligence, and soon quantum computers, all based on the incredible power sitting inside our skulls. But let's get back to talking about our emotions. Oh, goody. What pisses you off? What gets a rise out of you? Ever watch a movie that just gets under your skin? Whether it's the characters or the plot or the music. I don't mean in a good, inspiring way like Rudy. I mean something that makes your skin crawl. Makes you squirm in your seat or look away. There is such a rich array of other emotions that are incredibly uncomfortable to feel, and yet can cause immeasurable quantities of inspiration. We often associate the word inspiration with the rise of that warm, fuzzy feeling that makes us chase after an enjoyable experience, one where we create something that brings us and others immense joy. But what about the art, the subject matters that move us to create incredible but sometimes terrible things? When you think that all life as we currently define it is broken down as either a multicelled organism or a single-celled organism, I'd like to take a beat to take a closer look at our cells, because they really are truly remarkable. Remember how I said all we need to do is consider the concept of relativity in regards to how we observe our reality, both big and small and us in the middle? Let's do a little math here. There are approximately 8 billion people living on the planet at this very moment. Many being born and many dying in this exact moment as well, but the baseline population sits at a healthy threshold that stays consistent until the next boom. The average human body contains approximately 30 to 37 trillion human cells. I say human cells because we are actually made up of more non-human cells than actual human cells. Hard to believe, but you actually consist of more bacteria than human material, so you're not even as much you as you thought you were. Granted, that is only like a 1-to-3 ratio with bacteria making up 40 trillion cells within the body. Sure, what is a few trillion, give or take? But at the end of the day, that's a bit of a sobering reality. Again, another reason to really question. Because the more we keep breaking ourselves down, we really realize we aren't even as much of us as we thought we were. If your body replaces roughly 330 billion cells daily, mostly blood and intestinal cells, then the human hand alone sheds and replaces approximately 30,000 to 40,000 dead skin cells every minute, totaling nearly 500 million skin cells lost daily across the entire human body. And mind you, each one of these cells has a lifespan, a designated purpose, and even choices on how to operate based on the information given to it by its environment, both the nearby environment of the area of the body, inside the body, and outside information outside of the body. The same way something can trigger cancer inside the body based on information far outside of the body, we behave the same way, able to literally make ourselves sick about something happening halfway across the globe that doesn't have any direct immediate impact on our physical lives. Unless we give it so much attention, it ends up making us sick, just through thoughts and focus alone. Seriously, I have friends and family members so obsessed with the news and things happening overseas that they are literally losing their hair. And they have very little awareness of what is currently happening around them only 3 feet away. Again, where we place our attention is where we place our energy. Again, it is all relative, too. Time is the illusion, but that same process, cells dying and being replaced even in massive numbers within seconds, this same process happens to us as well. We just perceive it slower because we are personally experiencing it at the same rate of decay. It just happens over our lifetime, but to the cell, it is no different. If we start thinking of our cells as a micro version of us, we can learn a lot about how we operate and function as human beings. How large groups act like continents, then countries, then states, then cities, then communities, then families, then couples, then as individual people. The planet, a body. A continent, a body hemisphere. A country, an organ, and so on and so forth. All these different smaller breakdowns of a larger functioning system used to do one thing: live, create, continue, be. The bizarre and twisted aspect to all this is that our cells and our genes are triggered to make their own choices based on their immediate environment. Example, how are the other cells around me doing inside this organ called the liver? And by proxy, how is the entire liver doing? And by proxy, how is the owner of the liver doing? And all of this is dictated by how we perceive our outer environment. If our reality is perceived as not so great, we will trigger the cells in the corresponding part of the body to behave a certain way, either triggering cells to be healthy or unhealthy, promoting either wellness or disease. The ironic thing is that we also act like cancer, an abnormal cell that replicates based on damaged DNA. Our past experiences often cause trauma that sits dormant in us until something in our present triggers behavior we weren't even aware was hiding inside of us, waiting to come out when called upon to act out whatever pre-programmed dance we were destined to perform. It develops when genetic mutations override the body's normal, orderly process of cell division and death, causing damaged cells to multiply, form tumors, and potentially invade other tissues. Sounds familiar. The definition of cancer is fundamentally a genetic disease caused by changes to genes that control cell function. The Mayo Clinic breaks down cancer pretty clearly. It starts with a genetic mutation. DNA damage causes cells to stop responding to normal signals that tell them to die, apoptosis, or stop dividing. Then comes uncontrolled proliferation. These abnormal, damaged cells multiply uncontrollably. Then tumor formation. The mass is called tumors that often form due to the accumulation of dysfunctional cells. And finally, you have the spread, or metastasis. Malignant cancer cells can break away from the original tumor, traveling through the bloodstream or lymphatic system to form new tumors in other parts of the body. They go on to remind us that not all tumors are cancerous. Benign tumors do not invade nearby tissue, where malignant or cancerous tumors can spread to other parts of the body. Look, I'm not going to go into all the risks and causes and blah, 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 because everything causes cancer at some point. I've noticed humans can't seem to make up their minds. First, pizza causes you cancer, and then it's a health food, and then it's an allergen, and now it's a top family night, nutritious and caloric. You know what? Never mind. You get the point. It's trendy. Cancer can be weaponized by the same human cells that capitalize on brainwashing their own kind into buying into bad marketing. And sometimes, when we begin to behave in groups in a collectively negative way, our species has shown time and time again how quickly we can become cancerous in large numbers ourselves on this planet. Again, food for thought. Anyways, the good thing I can tell you is that most cancers are caused by gene mutations acquired over a lifetime due to aging, smoking, alcohol, or UV radiation, whereas a small percentage, about 5 to 10% of cancers, are caused by inherited genetic mutations. And, from what we've learned recently, behavior and psychological traits that are passed down are often what causes issues within the body to occur. Nurture becomes nature. But the good news is that this doesn't mean the end of the line, just the curve of evolution. The only way to change is to rewrite your DNA. And the only way to change your DNA is through discipline. But it is possible and is done by people every day. Brings us right back around to our emotional state and perception of reality. Now, let's take a closer look at the physiological response to emotions. The feeling of heat associated with anger or other strong emotions is part of the body's fight or flight response, mediated by the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is broken down into two parts. The sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, which activates the body for stressful or emergency situations, increasing blood pressure, heart rate, and alertness. And the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, which calms the body, slowing the heart rate, and promoting things like digesting food and healing damaged tissue. There is a third division, too, called the enteric nervous system, a complex network within the digestive tract that can function independently, regulating gut activities like digestion and motility. This is referring to that third brain in your body, that bundle of nerves in your gut that often thinks independently from the mind and heart brains. Use your head, follow your heart, listen to your gut. There's a reason we say these things. Those strong emotions really kick up some serious action in the body. Increase blood flow. And it's when experience anger, the adrenal glands release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Essentially, the come at me bro and stress hormones cause the heart rate to increase and the blood vessels to dilate in prep for physical exertion. This increased blood flow to the skin's surface and muscles can make a person feel flushed or warm. Then we have metabolic changes. The body's metabolism speeds up to provide energy, which generates metabolic heat as a byproduct. And then we have that perceived heat. While the body's core temperature remains largely stable, the sensation of warmth is a genuine physiological symptom of these changes. As we channel and transform this energy into angry forms of art, it is the process of converting emotional energy into literal physical energy through some form of psychological or creative process. Almighty Everybrain once again gives a solid breakdown of the process of channeling emotions into art. Side note, I just personally find these answers impressive in their clarity and articulation. They're concise as shit. Artists, which again, in this instance, truly means anyone capable of feeling emotions, channel intense feelings into their work as a way to express, process, and externalize emotions that can feel overwhelming. This process involves sublimination, a psychological defense mechanism where socially unacceptable impulses or emotions are consciously transformed into socially acceptable activities, such as creative expression. Then we have expressionism, an art movement where artists seek to express subjective emotions and responses that objects and events arouse within them, rather than depicting objective reality. And then we have catharsis, the process of releasing strong, repressed emotions through a particular activity or experience, such as making art. The creation of art allows the artist to release pent-up emotional energy in a constructive way. In summary, the heat felt during emotional arousal is a physical symptom of the body preparing for action. and angry forms of art are the symbolic and creative release of that energy. Well said, big-ass every brain. But remember, anger in art must always serve a purpose to the story or the intent, or otherwise it is just ugly emotion seeking an outlet and only seeks to serve itself in that moment. As artists, our responsibility is to channel that emotion into our given craft, and as scientists, to recognize the value and to continue researching the best methods and techniques for either repetition or improvement or refinement. This heat and tension in the body can be cultivated and channeled and used in all types of art forms. In fact, just about every art form can channel and use this energy. Once again, that art is a subjective viewpoint of a human really immersed in whatever it is they are doing, with a level of unpredictable mastery. Sometimes, a dance form can require precise, slow, articulate movements that, despite their speed, require at times more concentration, stamina, flexibility, and strength to maintain during the performance than many loud, explosive showcases of physical showmanship. Other times, it requires elegant intuition and moving without even thinking, allowing your senses and feelings to guide your body to success in the present moment. This can be seen in martial arts and in many forms of combative sports and sports of marksmanship, especially those using weapons or projectiles, where speed and quick reflexes require a deep study of the art itself and focused work on conditioning the body to execute the action the mind wishes to pull from the inner world of imagination into the present moment, executing the perfect move and winning the gold. Let me be clear again. Any craft or art can just be considered a skill to which an individual may have a natural talent or proclivity for. But art takes shape when the craftsman begins to no longer think about what they are doing. They feel about what they are doing. Something deep within shuts off any level of resistance to the present moment, and our brain hemispheres, which usually vibrate out of sync, begin to vibrate and operate in synchronicity with each other. And then something truly remarkable begins to happen as we enter flow state. This reminds me of the concept of Kung Fu. Everything is Kung Fu. It is performing or committing to a task so fully and to the best of your abilities that it becomes power. Our bodies begin to act like nuclear fusion reactors, taking in information and fuel from its environment, and then without any pause or break in the movement or flow of energy, the moment something comes into our field, it immediately becomes a part of us before we convert that energy back into the thing to keep it moving and alive as it continues to inspire us in the present moment, captivating us in the process as we continue to interact with it, both moving together in a cosmic dance of energy. It gives inspiration, and I give it my energy in response, from a place of intense focus and play. Have you ever been so into a game or activity that it seemed like someone had glued your vision to whatever it is you were doing to the point where you literally are unable to pull your eyes away? It can be a powerful experience, to be sure, but when we watch an artist work, is it the act itself that is being performed that we are enamored with, or is it the human animal we are captivated by? Drawn in by how intensely this person is focused to the point where they not only don't seem to notice the room full of people, but they also don't seem to care. Or is it the symbiotic relationship that has been created? No longer two separate things, but now one life form, both feeding each other more energy until you are watching the very thing that creates life itself. Fusion. Through art and the way we operate, could we find the mathematical equation and the potential algorithm to create working nuclear fusion? Maybe by observing the human particle more closely and taking notes of how we interact with each other, which is proving to be no different than how particles operate when observed in controlled experiments, we could discover how to create working nuclear fusion, a process of energy working together in harmony. Perhaps if we took note of the biological process of organic flow, with emotions as an overlooked component in the creation of life, then we might see something we missed by focusing on the machines we built versus the machines that built them. Who is to say that life isn't simply a slow-moving form of fusion, one where reality is shaped in real time, through observation, internalization, and then outward projection that reshapes perceived original reality with a perceived or reshaped reality, always moving, always changing, never truly still. And just like the sun, our poles flip from time to time, changing position till north is south and south is north. We do this too, hypocritically jumping from one foot to the next, deciding we like something at some point in our lives till something in our lives, seen or unseen, maybe just felt, changes our internal state enough for us to, once again, change our minds, and therefore our external environment, so it reflects the environment inside. In regards to our own sun, we are currently finishing up our solar cycle and are in solar maximum, which takes place every 11 years when the sun's poles flip and we get an increase in solar activity, solar storms and winds causing aurora borealis or northern lights, radio blackout, and, we'll explore this theory further in later episodes, the possible effects it may have on our own state of mind. So, can we observe other forms of nature that operate in a similar fashion? Of course you can. The examples are limitless and everywhere, and the more you look, the more you will find them. There are so many direct correlations and observable similarities in human beings and how they conduct themselves and develop their personal relationships and their personal identity. We can clearly observe this in particle physics through attraction and repulsion, and how certain elements, through a particular motion, begin to interact with one another, creating bonds that in turn create a reaction in their environment that stimulates further movement. Fusion, and the creation of more energy by pulling energy from its environment to keep things moving and alive, and by proxy promoting more life. An example would be a healthy family bond that merges two families to create better experiences and more life. Or fission, a lot of heat created by splitting something apart. An example is an unhealthy relationship, a chemical combination that, despite whatever the initial attraction was, has become volatile and eventually explosive, till the particles are pushed as far away from one another as possible till they are alone where they can cool down, or are heavily irradiated and become toxic to anything else around them. And when that happens, the only thing that can repair that damage is time. We can learn so much from being still for a moment and simply observing ourselves and our environment. You'll find that with enough time and focus, all the answers you seek to any question you may have exists in the quantum field of information that lies before you. Remember, when you are creating something both in your mind and out in the world, you aren't creating something from nothing. You're pulling from everything that has ever existed, both then, now, and even later. But you're still pulling from what is already there to simply change or alter what is already there. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And where you place your energy, this is where reality takes shape, both out there and in here. It's a dance, a rhythm, a conversation. It's just basic breathing, in and out, up and down. I challenge you to take some time to look a little bit into how the particles that make up, well, fucking everything, move and operate. You'll probably start to notice how some of those particles, those same tiny subatomic particles that make up everything, seen and unseen, operate the same way as things the size of galaxies, planets, and stars. When you think about how we attract and repulse each other and what happens when this occurs in our lives, you realize that we are just in the middle of atoms and galaxies. And if the smallest and largest things we can observe both operate exactly the same way, then what makes us think we are so special? Like I said before, 5% doesn't sound very aware. So who or what is controlling that other 95%? And if that other 95% is operating under the same working guidelines or programming as an atom or a galaxy, what are we doing? What is the collective human animal, and life for that matter, actually building? What are we making? And how is art a biological facilitator for change? And what is art evolving us into? What happens when we become one? Does the singularity just get so dense and hot it can't contain itself? And then like matter and antimatter coming into contact, it obliterates itself and we get the Big Bang all over again? I'm getting way off the rails here. I got to be careful. I go too far over the deep end, I could end up somewhere undesirable again. Anyways, that's all we have time for today. But again, take a moment to be still and just observe. Watch how the world moves and take note of that synchronicity. Fun little exercise. Remember that your cells are these little nuclear fusion reactors, waiting to be told what to be. So take some time to try to talk to your cells in a deep meditation. Imagine them, see them fully in your mind. Picture them turning on and off, triggered to either become a healthy cell needed somewhere in the body for repair or healing, or what it feels like to tell your cells to be sick and to create disease. How does this feel? Because remember, the only person telling your cells how to behave and what to become is actually you and how you perceive your environment. This is why some people can exist in a safe environment and get sick, telling the cells they need to create disease, whereas other people can live in hostile environments and learn to adapt and survive, telling their genes, yes, we can and yes, we will, and so develop incredible adaptations through biology and behavior. It really is all up to you. But you need to take some time to observe how you operate when on autopilot, so you can see where some of your programming could use some recoding. So, wherever you are on the planet or in the universe, thanks for tuning in. Stay creative and vibe high. Oh, good. We're inside an active volcano. That's cute.